Hello, this is Daniel Mart back again. I'm an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida, and for this video, I'm going to be discussing the Sony news that popped off last week. We kind of got like a double hitter of Sony news last week, about a week and a half ago, right there when June was turning to July, essentially. So the two pieces of news I want to discuss is that one, Sony is no longer going to be producing physical media anymore, physical games anymore, which in a vacuum, since I'm not really a gamer, shouldn't really affect me. But then again, I consume physical media. So how does this affect me, basically? And to go alongside with that, I'm also going to be discussing the fact that they have removed a total of 551 different movies off of their server, or they will by September 1st. Now it's still on there, but come September 1st, those movies are no longer going to be there. 551 movies are not going to be there. And I want to discuss both of them because I think both of them are very integral to what's happening right now and just the larger media focus when it comes to physical media, how physical media is consumed, how media in general, whether it be movies, TV shows, games, music, whatever, is being consumed right now. And basically the slow decline of physical media. Clearly, I am one who champions physical media in all avenues. I am pointing to my movies here. On top of that, I have a huge book collection that's right there on that area right there. I also have some of my plays, my not movie plays, like theater plays, like right there. That, I also collect books, basically, you could say, in a sense. I am an avid reader. I mean, here's my Bible. I still have a physical Bible. So, I love physical media in whatever form it comes. And granted, I'm not a gamer, I'll admit that, but I still like, back when I used to be a gamer, so to speak, and even now I'm using that term loosely because my definition of gaming is getting on my Nintendo DS and playing Pokemon, but that's still putting the cartridge right there in the DS, or putting the cartridge in the Game Boy, putting the disc in the GameCube, because yes, I had a GameCube. Like, that's about as far as I went into gaming, So, yeah, I mean, that, and I guess phone, I have apps on my phone, like Brick Breaker, so I guess if you want to count that, sure. So yeah, what does this mean in general? So I'm gonna discuss first off the whole thing with Studio Canal and Sony in this deal, because I think this is one of those things that I can't really blame Sony for entirely. I think this is one of those things that a lot of people are blaming Sony, and I understand, especially because it came back to back. This was actually the first news that came up. The day after, 2 days afterwards, is when we heard that Sony is no longer going to be producing physical media, physical games. My bad. But I do want to discuss this movie stuff first because I do find it interesting in a vacuum. So on September 1st, so in about a month and a half from now, because right now I'm filming this on July 9th, so they're going to be removing 551 movies. I think the big one that for whatever reason people are like latching onto is Terminator 2. But, there's 550 other movies that are going to be discontinued, taken off of Sony from that deal. And this is one of those things where I'm not entirely going to blame Sony. So the way this worked out is that Sony, I guess at one point they had a TV studio, or like a TV production studio, or streaming service, something like that. I'm not sure. I can't really keep track with streaming services right now. I know there's like small ones like Peacock, for example, AMC Plus. I know it has something, but like I wasn't aware that Sony had their own stuff. But I guess I could have predicted it, all things considered. And from what it seems, this streaming service, or whatever it was, it began shortly after the pandemic started, or somewhere around there. And they made this deal in 2021, from what I understand. And that's when we got Terminator 2 and whatever other movies. And I assume shows would be involved in this deal as well. But whatever movies and shows, and they were uploaded into the Sony server. And from what I understand, it's not like your typical streaming service. It's not like Netflix or Hulu, HBO, whatever. It's more in line with something like Amazon, where you could buy the show, you could buy the movie, you could rent it, or you could buy it for the time being for $3.99 or $14.99, because I know that's how it is when you want to buy it. $3.99 is if you want to rent it for a day or two, and $14.99 is if you want to keep it. And I guess that's the model that they were using, the Amazon version of it, or the Amazon Prime version of it. Basically, that's the model that they decided to use, which, it's kind of dumb, but whatever, is what it is. If that's how people wanted it, that's how people wanted it. Cool. But again, since this was two companies coming into this deal, I would also put some of the blame on this on Studio Canal. Now, I guess what happened in like the past 5 years is that Sony, their streaming service, basically floundered, but the contract still needs to be fulfilled. So basically, they're going to let it ride out up until September 1st of this year. They're not going to renew the contract. They were not interested in renewing the contract, and it is what it is. Come September, those movies are all going to be taken off the server. And the main thing that's coming out of this is the fact that, wait, I bought this movie. I should be able to keep it. Well, See, guys, boys, and girls, this is why something like physical media, Pokemon, this is why physical media, whether it be a DVD, you know, whether it be a Blu-ray, let me grab a Blu-ray very fast, whether it be a Blu-ray, whether it be a DVD, whether it be a book, does not matter. It has been shown time and time again that digital media is not really secure at all. And this is just another example why it is so important to collect, some people would say hoard, but I don't care, but to collect physical media in all its avenues. I wish I had a CD. I don't collect CDs. I don't collect vinyls, you know, but still, like, whatever your physical media of choice is, that's why it's so important to get this. That's why, because there's going to be instances like this where they're not going to be no longer available, where, yes, I spent, let's say, the $15 to own it, but as they explain in several articles, you bought the right to license, to watch the movie. You didn't actually buy the movie, which I think is some technical jargon, some legal mumble jumble jargon, whatever, which I do think in the long run is kind of stupid, but that is the reality of the situation. But here, I own La La Land. I own The Dirty Dozen, the French version of The Dirty Dozen. I own a version of the Bible. I mean, this will never happen with the Bible, but if the Bible were to, for whatever reason, across every single website across the board, go down, I have my physical media of the Bible. If for whatever reason, The Dirty Dozen is no longer on Netflix, I'll be honest, I'm not even sure it is on Netflix to begin with, or HBO, or Peacock, or even Disney Plus, because Disney Plus apparently has some movies that kind of shock me sometimes, or Criterion Channel, or whatever streaming service. Again, I'm not even sure what streaming service it would be on. You know, maybe Apple TV, Amazon, I don't care. But if they take it down across the board, I still have that. Same thing with La La Land. La La Land, if they take it off every single streaming service across the board, I still have this. You cannot take this away from me. I bought this. It is in my collection. I have this. I have it on the shelf there and there and there and there. Literally under me right now is a shelf. I can pick out whatever movie I want and watch it at any time. If I bought Terminator 2, I know I have Terminator somewhere in this collection. I'm not gonna look for it right now for the example, but neither here nor there. Let's say I only had Terminator 2 on digital. Oh crap, I no longer have it. Come September, I no longer have it. That is why it's so important to have physical media. So that's why I'm not entirely blaming Sony in this regard, because for them, this is truly a business decision, which I do truly understand. I know it sucks to hear this, but I truly do understand this. Their streaming service, for whatever it was, however unknown it was, it failed miserably from what I understand, or it just didn't work out. Doesn't matter, you know, but they had to honor the deal. They had to honor the contract. And now they're just laying the contract right out until the day that they have to, which is September 1st, 2026. At that point, Studio Canal can do whatever they want with those movies, and I'm sure they've had other licensing deals across the board, you know, because like you could get Terminator 2 on DVD still, and Blu-ray. There's a bunch of box sets, Terminator box sets that you could get it on. I'm just using Terminator 2 as the example because that's the main one that people are focusing on for whatever reason. But still, I'm sure you can still get a bunch of these movies, but realistically, there may be some movies that you may not be able to find anywhere else, or it'd be very hard to find. For example, I'm going to use my copy of the Ogre of Athens. This is only really available through Radiance. I have not seen Criterion produce this. I have not seen Kino Lorber produce this. I'm sure there's maybe another boutique label. Maybe Severance has it somewhere. Or not Deaf Crocodile because they focus more on animation. But there's a bunch of other boutique labels that are popping up. Maybe somewhere on Video or Video Arrow or Arrow Video or Vistron, whatever that thing's called. Like, again, there's a bunch of boutique labels. But as far as I know, the Ogre of Athens is only available through Radiance. But let's say Radiance, for whatever reason, loses the license. That sucks, and it's going to be even harder to find. But now I know that if I can never find this again, I still have my Blu-ray copy of the Ogre of Athens. That's how it is sometimes. Same thing with Criterion. There's a bunch of Criterion movies that are super hard to find, and you can only find them on Criterion initially. And then essentially, Radiance, Arrow, Severance, Vinegar Syndrome, etc., 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 Kino Lorber, whatever, Shout Factory, Scream Factory, doesn't matter. Maybe they'll take a copy of it and produce their own version. Nosferatu is one that comes up to mind where they have a few different versions across the board, for example. But that's how it is. But again, my point is that's why it's so important to have physical media in your possession. Because then stuff like this, it sucks. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to deny it sucks that it happens. But now that's not something I need to worry about. If I ever want to watch, again, if I ever want to watch Terminator 2, I could literally go through my collection. I'm pretty sure it's in the Blu-ray section. Go to my section, wherever it is here in my collection, and pull out Terminator 2, you know? That's the simple reality of the situation. Okay, and keep in mind, Terminator 2 is one of the easier movies to buy. Again, let's say the Ogre of Athens is part of this deal, and Studio Canal, I highly doubt it, but just to use it as the example. And let's say Radiant never put out this movie. On top of that, okay, cool. I just lost access to the Ogre of Athens. How the hell am I gonna watch it again? It's like maybe I'll find a 240p copy of it on Daily Motion, but that's about it, you know. And I've done that. I've looked for movies. For some of the videos I've done, like the top 20, top 30 movies that should be at Criterion, I've done that for movies, and the only copy of it is a 240 or a 120p version of the movie on Vimeo or Daily Motion or some random Russian website that nobody's ever heard of. That's how obscure sometimes these movies are, and that's why it's so important to have physical media. The one thing that many people are thinking about is like, oh, can we now sue Sony? Can we now sue Studio Canal because we bought the movies? And no, it goes back to the licensing. You didn't buy the actual movie. You bought the rights to license the movie to watch it whenever you want. But that's really it. Like, lawyers have already said their input on this, and there is some avenue for a lawsuit, depending on how you want to define it, but it's still going to be an uphill battle. And at the end of the day, they don't really have much of a case in the grand scheme of things. The one thing that does suck, but again, I do understand from Sony's point of view, and I know it sucks to say this because it sounds like I'm defending corporate America right now, which is not really what I want to do, but I am being realistic in the sense. They're like, no, we're not going to reimburse you. Sorry, but that's the reality of the situation, and honestly, I don't think there should be a reason they should be reimbursed. If I was in that situation, I would want to be reimbursed. I'm not gonna lie. I would want to be reimbursed, but like realistically, okay, cool, this is the risk I was taking for buying digital media. Because think about it, I could have either bought the movie Terminator 2 for $15 to watch it only on Sony, only on PlayStation, through a digital service, and that's it. Or I could have spent the $15 to buy Terminator 2 on Blu-ray, or maybe $20 to buy the whole collection on Blu-ray. You know what I mean? It's really that simple. So it sucks. I will say it does suck that there's not going to be a reimbursement. I do think that's the worst part of it all. In the grand scheme of things, I do think that's the worst aspect of it all. But at the same time, I understand. Now, onto the actual other piece of news, which I will get onto right now. We have the fact that Sony is also no longer going to be producing physical games, physical discs. Again, where's Pokemon very fast? Physical discs of their games. GTA 6, I think, is going to be the biggest game coming forward right now. In, like, what, the next month or two, if I'm not mistaken? And I'm like, that is a dumb idea. First off, one of your biggest games is about to come out. GTA 6. People have been waiting, what, a decade plus for this for this game to come out. I've only played GTA, and I don't even know which one, to be honest with you, like maybe once 10-ish years ago whenever I went to Peru, and my cousin just happened to have it, so I may have played it a few times during that trip. But so I'm not like the biggest GTA fan. I really don't care for GTA all that much. The only other thing I like about GTA is the fact that it has Stephen Ogg, and the only reason I know Stephen Ogg is because he was on The Walking Dead. That's as far as I know about my GTA knowledge. But I do think it's very short-sighted of Sony to not produce that game on physical media. Like, you guys would make so much money with GTA 6 alone. You know, and granted, this is not just about GTA 6, but like, when that is the biggest game of the year, when it's gonna be one of the biggest games of the year, bar none, even if it fails, which I highly doubt it will, but even if it fails, how do you not have that game on physical media? So that baffling decision aside, honestly, it also goes to show a wider trend in just physical media, because this is something that the companies have been wanting to do for some time. They wanted to phase out physical media for such a long time, especially in the 2020s. To a certain degree, movie theaters are physical media, because we go to a place to watch movies, and they wanted to phase it out, and the pandemic helped a lot in that charade, and that's why we have the issue of digital media now, why we have movies in the comfort of our own home, and I don't mean DVDs, but why stuff has been delivered immediately to streaming so often, so fast, in such rapid succession, why movies are in theaters so quickly, go onto streaming, onto Netflix, HBO, it doesn't matter. And this is kind of the game version of all this, basically, because it's not like you could go to a, I don't know, game theater. I don't know what would be the equivalent of this, because that's not really a thing in gaming. But it's not really like you can go to a building and play your games. I mean, yes, there's an arcade, but it's not within the context that I'm trying to present here. This is something that companies have been wanting to do, and their excuse is that basically that, oh, nobody's really buying physical media, which that's just a bold-faced lie. If anything, there's been trends showing that people are trying to buy more physical media right now. Granted, it may not be to the same extent that it was maybe 10 years ago, I'll give you that, but still, people are trying to buy more physical media. But the problem is that when you limit the amount of physical media that's available, predictably, the amount of physical media that's going to be bought is of course going to lessen as well. So example, let's say 10 years ago, the GTA 6, let's say GTA 6 for example, 10 years ago, they will make 1,000 copies, right? And most everybody bought it. So at the end of the day, let's say out of 1,000 copies, 950 of them were bought. Great. Nowadays, after 10 years, after a pandemic, after the comfortability of just being used to digital media being force-fed to us, now you only produce 500 copies of GTA 6, and now instead of, I guess, 950 will be half of that. That would be, so that's 475. So now instead of 475 out of 500 being bought, which will be the equivalent of 950 to 1,000 being bought, now instead of that, you have 200 being bought. So predictably, yes, the amount of people who are buying physical media is lessened after a global pandemic, after the comfortability of being used to digital media versus physical media, and after the limited amount of resources, so to speak, or physical media that you are actually making available. No duh that the amount of people buying physical media has lessened in the past 10 years. However, if you look at it within the past 5 years, since the pandemic going forward, there's been a steady trend, and granted, it's nothing to the same extent that it was 10 years ago, but so there's been a slow, steady trend that people have been wanting to get back into physical media. Now, the most obvious examples of that are, of course, movies and music with the vinyls and the CDs and books, but games also do fall in line with that too. Just, it is what it is. It's just that games is not something that we typically think about because, and I've had the discussion, people, for whatever reason, don't consider games to be physical media or just to be media at all, which is kind of weird and ironic, but that's the simple reality of the situation. So yeah, no duh, your statistics of saying that, hey, people are not buying as much physical media as they used to is true, but it's true with an asterisk. And that's the problem with it. So I do find it very weird that that's your excuse. And that's on top of the fact that I just find the timing of this really weird when their biggest game is about to come out. I just find that extremely weird and like almost kind of self-sabotaging to a suicidal extent, honestly. And then how would this affect the general movie landscape? I do think this is something that could affect the movie landscape. Physical media, as I've been saying right now, has been on the decline. The actual act of producing physical media, the actual act of making movies for DVD and Blu-ray and 4K. Like, for example, Disney, right now, half the time that they release one of their movies for DVD, for Blu-ray, whatever, it's always like some kind of special event. Like, oh, get the exclusive Hopper Steelbook. Get the exclusive red version of Turning Red, like with the red Blu-ray. Instead of a blue Blu-ray case, they have a red Blu-ray case, which I actually have. For example, like, get the special slipcovers, this and the other. You know, that's the main thing that they're promoting, and usually the main thing that they're promoting is about $40. That's on top of the fact that you have to compete with something like Criterion now. It's also $40. Same thing with Kino Lorber, that's averaging $30 sometimes. Same thing with Arrow Video, who's also averaging about $30. That's the thing, like, buying physical media has also become very much expensive. That's another reason why I say it's with an asterisk. The reason people are buying less physical media is with an asterisk, because you have all these other elements that were not there 10 years ago. And they're trying to say, oh, this is the same thing. Well, no, it is a radically different field. 10 years ago, 2016, to 10 years right now, 2026, it is a radically different field. Yes, there may be a decline, but what are the reasons, what are the factors that are going into this decline? Again, we have the fact of a global pandemic. We have the fact that there is a comfort with digital media now, more than ever. On top of that, we have the fact that the companies in general are just not producing physical media to the same extent that they were before. And we have the fact that they're also making it a lot more expensive. We also have the fact that there's a lot of stores that no longer carry physical media. Best Buy and Target being the prime examples. Walmart downsizing their stock across the board, whether it be with games, books, movies, music, does not matter. The fact that the majority of physical media can only really be bought through boutique labels, whether it be through DVDs and movies, whether it be through books, with like Penguin House even, for example, or Samuel French when it comes to plays, for example, whether it be with games, it's all boutique-sized, I guess. I'm not even sure if that's a word, but boutique-sized. That's why there's been such a downsizing in physical media. There's been such an attack against physical media, especially in the past 5 years, thanks to the pandemic, that the reason why the levels are to such a quote-unquote low that they are is because of all the factors against it. But realistically, when you look at the trends and you look at the people who are buying this and the people who are actually desiring this, there is a slow keyword. There is slow, which companies do not like to see slow. They rather see no growth, downward growth, or an instant upward growth. But the reality is there is a slow trend starting to build up again for physical media. Thing is, again, companies do not like slow progress. They want instant progress or no progress at all. And if they see no progress at all, then they'll fix the situation. Ergo, fixing means ruining everything for the rest of us. That's the real simplicity of the situation. That is the reality of the situation at the end of it all. So yeah, those are my thoughts on all this. This is just really an attack on physical media. It sucks. It sucks. Even though I'm not a gamer, my heart does pain for gamers, and honestly, I'm just confused. Why on GTA? At least if you're gonna do this, do it after GTA 6. You know, there's that too. Because even monetarily, this is gonna do great for you. This is actually company suicide for you guys. Like, what the hell? You know, even in the short run, this is company suicide, because 100% people would love to buy a physical disc of GTA 6. This is Daniel Mart signing off.